What would you do if you were treated like a criminal just because of your skin color, in a place where you should be treated with respect? And what if that humiliation were suffered by your 12-year-old daughter, right in front of you? What seemed like a simple deposit turned into a battle for justice. But who will pay for racism disguised as professionalism? It was a Wednesday afternoon when Amara, a 12-year-old girl, was walking with her mother to the bank in the city center. Her mother, Clara, always told her that every small step in life was important. Today was one of those moments when Amara felt that, although her mother never said it directly, she wanted her to be a responsible adult, capable of handling everything with dignity. Amara had saved up for weeks to buy her mother a special gift. With Clara's help, she had managed to save a small amount that she was ready to deposit into her bank account. She was excited but also nervous. At 12, everything was new, and she wanted to do things right. The door to the bank sounded as she pushed it open, and the cold air conditioning immediately embraced her. The branch was full of customers, but the atmosphere didn't seem welcoming. In the waiting seats, people looked around indifferently, absorbed in their phones or waiting to be attended to. Amara approached the counter where a woman in her 30s, with short hair and a stern gaze, looked her up and down. The girl, feeling uncomfortable by the stare, tried to smile. The woman behind the counter had an attitude that seemed curt from the very first moment. "How can I help you?" she asked in a cold voice, not really looking at the girl, but at the money she was holding in her hand. "I want to deposit money," Amara said, her voice trembling. She took out the coins and bills from her small backpack, lining them up on the counter. The woman frowned, and without taking her eyes off the money, began to count it in an excessively slow manner, as if she didn't trust the girl. Minutes passed, and Amara began to feel uncomfortable, nervously glancing around. "This money seems odd," the woman said, raising an eyebrow, as if the girl were committing some kind of fraud. Amara didn't understand what was happening, but the look in the employee's eyes gave her a feeling of distrust. The woman's words continued to fall like blows, harsh and unwarranted. "You can't make this kind of deposit here, little girl," she said, pushing the money back toward her. "Go to another bank. We don't have time for this." Amara froze. At that moment, the feeling of injustice enveloped her, but she didn't dare to respond. The shame choked her as she felt the gazes of the people in the bank, as if she were an intruder, a thief. What do you mean, no?" she asked, her eyes shining with tears that didn't dare to fall. "I just want to help." The employee, showing not the slightest empathy, looked at her with disdain. "I told you to leave. If you don't have clean or legal money, you can't be here," she stated with an arrogant tone. Just as the girl was trying to muster the courage to protest, the door to the bank opened and an elegant woman in her 40s entered with a firm step. It was Clara, Amara's mother, with a presence that immediately filled the space. The employee, upon recognizing her, paused, but quickly her eyes flashed with a mixture of disdain and surprise. Clara walked up to the counter and, without making a sound, observed the scene, her daughter standing, trembling slightly, with her head bowed and the money scattered across the counter. The mother's gaze was direct, fixed like a laser. "What's going on here?" she asked, her voice filled with contained power but determined. The employee looked up and, for a moment, was left speechless. Clara took in every detail of the situation and didn't need an explanation. She knew what was happening, even before the woman could answer. "Why are you treating my daughter like this?" Her tone was that of a CEO who knew the situation wasn't negotiable. The employee, visibly uncomfortable, tried to smile, but her face reflected nervousness. The heat of the discomfort became more evident with every word. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I didn't realize that," she began to say, but Clara interrupted her, not with anger, but with a dangerous calm. "My daughter has been saving to deposit money into her account, and you're treating her like she's a criminal. I won't allow it." The employee hesitated, unsure how to respond, while Amara finally raised her head, feeling the unconditional support of her mother by her side. But Clara didn't let the situation continue any longer. "From this moment on, I want to speak to your supervisor," she said, without losing her composure. The employee, now trembling, saw how the situation was falling apart in front of her. Clara didn't move from the spot. The atmosphere in the bank tensed. Murmurs began to fill the space. No one dared to intervene, although everyone was watching. The tension was palpable, and Amara, though in shock, felt the firmness and power of her mother by her side. It was only a matter of time. Clara didn't move a muscle. Her presence remained as firm as a rock in the sea, and her gaze stayed fixed on the employee, who was beginning to sweat, fully aware of the magnitude of what she had done. The 12-year-old girl was by her side, still trembling, but now with a determined look that only a mother could inspire. The employee, now unable to hold Clara's gaze, stammered out an empty apology, as if she could undo the damage with quick words. But Clara knew those words wouldn't change anything. "That's not enough," Clara said, with a calm that contrasted with the tension in the air. "Now I want you to call your supervisor." Her tone left no room for excuses. The employee, now visibly confused and trapped in her own lie, tried to move toward the phone, but Clara stopped her with a single look. "And make sure they come personally," she added, with a touch of authority that left no room for error. The employee turned around, hurriedly making the call, while the rest of the bank watched in complete silence. Clara, for her part, bent down slightly and looked at her daughter. "Amara, how do you feel?" she asked softly, offering a smile that only a mother can give in the midst of a storm. Amara, who until then had been fighting back tears, finally let them fall. It wasn't sadness, but a mix of anger and relief, and all she wanted at that moment was for her mother to be there to protect her. "I'm fine, Mom. Thank you," she said, with a stronger voice, now feeling supported. The supervisor arrived quickly, an older man who seemed used to handling difficult situations. He approached the counter and observed the scene calmly. But Clara didn't give him a single moment of courtesy. "This is my daughter," she said, pointing at Amara. "She came to make a deposit, just like anyone else." This employee treated her like a criminal, denied her the right to be attended to, and threw her out of the bank without reason. What kind of discrimination is this? The supervisor, visibly uncomfortable, glanced at the employee, who tried to explain her side of the story but couldn't articulate any excuse that held weight. "Ma'am, I'm very sorry for what happened, but," the supervisor began, trying to soften the situation. Clara didn't let him continue. "I don't want excuses. I want an immediate solution, because what just happened isn't just unfair, it's unacceptable. This employee has humiliated my daughter for the simple reason of being black. And what do you think you're going to do about it?" The supervisor, completely overwhelmed by Clara's firmness, had no choice but to take action. "Excuse me, ma'am. Let me handle this." A few minutes later, Clara was escorted to a private office where they began to review the situation more thoroughly. Clara, with calmness and firmness, filed a formal complaint, accompanied by her identity as an executive director at the bank. The situation was soon handled directly by senior executives, who quickly understood that what had happened was not just a simple mistake. It was an act of blatant racial discrimination. Meanwhile, the employee, realizing that her behavior had become the center of attention, began to feel the weight of karma within her. No one in the bank looked at her with the same indifference as before. Some murmured among themselves, others deliberately avoided her. Within minutes, the supervisor, with a grim expression, approached her. "I need you to come to my office now." The employee followed the supervisor, knowing that her apologies wouldn't be enough to save her position. When she reached the office, the wait was brief. In less than 30 minutes, the supervisor emerged from the office with a somber face and announced to all employees that the woman would be suspended from her duties indefinitely while the situation was investigated. The news didn't surprise anyone. The way she treated Amara had made it clear that she didn't deserve to be there. Attention shifted back to Clara and her daughter, who were now back at the counter. The supervisor apologized once more, but this time with sincerity. "Ma'am, I've spoken with senior executives, and I want you to know that we're taking the necessary measures to ensure something like this never happens again. The employee has been suspended and is being investigated for her behavior. Your daughter will never be treated that way again at this bank, I promise." Clara nodded, and her face reflected the satisfaction of knowing that, although the damage had already been done, she had achieved something bigger than just a simple complaint. She had ensured that no one else would have to suffer what her daughter experienced. Amara, now more at ease, took the money she was finally able to deposit and walked up to her mother. "Thank you, Mom. I don't know what I'd do without you." Clara smiled with infinite tenderness. "You did it, Amara. You did it." And as the two left the bank, karma had arrived for the employee who would learn the hard way that discrimination would never go unpunished. The girl, for her part, had learned that there's no greater power than truth and justice. And on that day, both of them had won a battle that would transcend far beyond that bank.